Let me just give you a quick introduction in case you're not sure who you're dealing with here. That's Conor O'Shea down the very end. The man in the middle is Brent Pope. The man to my extreme right is a Rugby World Cup winning captain and a man of much merriment, happiness this evening. It's Mr. Francois Pinard. And the man to his right is Ireland's answer to a bundle of joy, the great Mr. George Hook.
Just wondering, like, is it not with, okay, John Hayes wasn't involved today, but after John Hayes, and if you're getting someone like either Buckley or Clean Healy injured, that the sort of the backup in regards to all the props is really, really scarce at the minute. And I'm just wondering if anyone thought that, wouldn't it be wise if someone like, say, Mike Ross would have been gotten a shot today, because he's coming about like a reputation as a very good technical scrummager, whereas all the other lads are like more in the loose.
Yeah, where does Mike Ross fit in, Conor?
I'm working at Harlequins now, and a couple of years ago Mike Ross, and knowing what the guys say about him, they say he was probably the rock on which the pack was built. And I think one of my pet hates is people saying what people can't do. And a lot of people I hear talk about Mike Ross has been unable to ball carry, unable to contribute in the loose, unable to do that. Well, if you have a blooming scrum, it's a heck of a lot of good start in terms of playing rugby. It begins and ends with the scrum, especially when you're playing the box.
If you look at the latitude that Spieth had today to go off the back, Jamie Hislop would love that scrum up slightly, even up 6 inches. And I think you call him Diana Ross, George, but I'm a big, well, that's what he said.
Francois, yeah?
But I'm a big fan of Mike Ross. I think Conor is right. I think that the guy hasn't been given the credit he's been given this year. I think he's scrummed exceptionally well. He should have been given a chance, because if all you do at the next World Cup is carry a tight head that can just scrum, I don't care if he does anything else around the park, if he can just hold the scrum solid.
Let me take a question from a supporter watching online on the Guinness Rugby Supporters Ireland page on Facebook, George. And the question that comes in is, do the panel think that the decision to start Sexton tonight was the right one? And that comes in from Catherine Keegan.
The South Africans didn't have any problem in selecting a fly half who was primarily a kicker, because they thought it was the right guy to have for this match with that team. So you don't pick a fly half just in isolation. You say, what kind of game are we trying to play? What kind of team have we got? What kind of centres have we got? Now, if you want to play a game that is backward looking, then you have to go for O'Gara, because O'Gara will get territory for you, kick the ball behind you. If you want to play the game which other countries are trying to play, then you play Sexton. But we're not good enough to play the game that other people play. We are far better off, like the Springboks of '06, in going back to the game that we know best, kick it up in the air and run after it.
I'm a very, very big Stringer O'Gara fan. I thought Peter.
From an Irish point of view, is it important for Ireland to be more outcome orientated or performance orientated with the view to peaking at the World Cup? Because it clearly hasn't worked in the last 2 World Cups. So are the results as important as we're reading into, or is it about the bigger picture for the World Cup?
Frankie, I'm going to pop a question back to you straight away on this one, because I would believe it's absolutely performance orientated, and today wasn't a good performance. So you take it, if I was looking at that, or you or any of us were looking and saying, what about, as Popey said, why were we kicking the ball off the pitch? What happened to our line out? And that's the question back to you, because we lost. We said coming out at 13-6 or whatever it was at half time, we needed to hold on to the ball and retain the ball. We had 5 line-outs in the first 10 minutes and we lost 4 of them. And to me, it was a poor throw, a crooked throw, an overthrow, and we didn't make a substitution. So this is not about performance. It was actually, that was process there that we didn't get right, and they're the things we need to nail, because God knows we mightn't have Paul O'Connell, we mightn't have Jerry Flannery, and we need to be able to solve those problems. And that's the concern I had from today, is that we didn't solve those problems. So over to you, Hooking.
No, I throw the question back to Frankie as well. Can you spell orientated?
I'm always bemused by the fact that once a coach or a team loses the game, the first excuse is, but we are building for the next World Cup. I've never heard a coach, after they've won a match, say, we are building for the next World Cup. In my opinion, a World Cup is a project. It's a 4-month, maybe a 5-month project. You have to build a base. So it's the performance that matters. So you want to build a bigger squad, a stronger squad. You want to find more talent. Because come World Cup time, there's certain things that you've got to get right. And one of them is the bounce of the ball in certain instances. So I just wish coaches would stop saying we're building for the next World Cup, because that's the biggest cop-out.
Just this evening you've said that we've got these old players who need wheelchairs and who shouldn't be on the pitch. And then you want Ronan O'Gara and Jordan Murphy to play. So can you explain that to me?
Are you
because
suggesting that George is contradicting himself?
I am actually, Ryle, that's exactly it.
Oh,
And,
yes.
and on the same note, last week you were lamenting the Irish team's, the province's instinct to kick the ball. And now you want us to play a kicking game.
Are you again suggesting that George is contradicting?
No, it's actually very simple. If you,
It's quite simple.
the problem is if you listen, it's amazing.
Apologies.
The first thing is that you decide how you're going to play the game. If I were coach in Ireland, I wouldn't bother about new law interpretations. I told you I'd kick it up in the air and I'd run after it. To that end, I would then pick players who can do that. Those players would be older. If, on the other hand, you want to play the modern game, then you have to pick other guys. What Leinster Munster are doing is they are pretending that they've taken on board the new law interpretations, but they're not doing it, because if they did, Conway wouldn't have hoofed the ball last week, Madigan wouldn't have hoofed it into the grandstand, and Naseva, after running 50 yards from his own line, wouldn't have kicked it into touch.
How do we develop leaders on the field? We've had one, I think, tonight in Brian O'Driscoll, possibly, as a captain, but the rest of them haven't been up to the mark.
Okay.
How do we develop those?
Leaders on the field, Conor.
Leadership on the field is also developed by time on the field, and you have someone like Rory Best, who was having his own personal nightmare, and I think anyone who's played international rugby goes through a match or two like that where it is tough to actually then step up and lead, but you get it through experience. So Johnny Sexton cannot have Ronan O'Gara's experience or leadership in a certain period of time, and what you don't need to lose is a core. Teams often talk about a spine of 2, 8, 9, 10, 12 and 15. And if you look at the spines of the great sides, that's where they're at their best. They've got leaders in all those positions. If you went through our team, I think Jamie Heaslip is a leader. I think Owen Redden was coming back into a team, so he wouldn't be leading. But you've lost Tomas O'Leary, who would naturally have this aggressive competitive streak. Ronan O'Gara has the edge in terms of leadership, and Johnny Sexton, that's natural, that's experience. At 12 we had, and at 15 you have Rob Carney, who's still new to international rugby. It's not a vastly experienced spot.
Well, there's a direct correlation between the growth of coaching and the decline in leadership. Once upon a time, the captain ran the training session, picked the team, organised the bus, and therefore you created leadership. Now you have a captain who does little more than toss the coin.
Well, let's ask
with a few notable exceptions like Matt Damon. And
The thing about captaincy was teams with big playing pools had the luxury of being able to select a captain on merit for his captaincy ability. Ireland doesn't have that, because if you go back, not all captains were the best players of their teams, but they were great leaders and people would go over the wall for them and they would play for them. Ireland doesn't have that luxury, because the first thing you've got to have in a captain is he's got to be assured his position in Ireland for a start. He's got to make the team, because you can talk about Rory Best's captaincy skills all you like for Ulster. If he's not hitting the lineouts, you're not going to pick him. So you bring in a young guy and then you lose the captaincy. South Africa, New Zealand, Australia to a less extent have a larger pool of players, and they can see outstanding captaincy material and pick that guy regardless if he's the best in his position or not.
Please remember to check out Guinness Rugby at www.guinness.com/rugby or on Facebook, and of course check out the Guinness Rugby Ireland Facebook for details of our next Area 22 event, which is going to take place after the Ireland All Blacks game, the New Zealand game, in a fortnight's time. This has been Area 22. My thanks to Conor, to Brent, to George, most especially to Francois. Thank you all for being here and for participating, and from everybody on Guinness Area 22, it's a very good evening. Thank you. Well done, everybody.